Israel has approved operational plans for war with Lebanon. The move came after Hezbollah released threatening drone footage over the Israeli port city of Haifa, located 27 kilometers from the Lebanese border. Filmed in the daytime, the footage showed civilian and military areas, including malls and residential quarters, in addition to a weapons manufacturing complex and missile defense batteries. The drone footage is a bid to demonstrate Hezbollah's ability to breach Israel's air defenses and reach deep into the country. Israel's foreign minister called out Hezbollah's leader and said that Israel is very close to the moment of decision to change the rules against Hezbollah and Lebanon, underlining that in an all-out war, Hezbollah will be destroyed and Lebanon will be severely hit. Later, the head of the Israeli Northern Command stated that they approved and validated plans to mount a ground assault north of the border. Tensions between Israel and Hezbollah have been mounting since the start of the Gaza war. For months on end, low-level hostilities have simmered across the border, but recently things have picked up a notch. This month alone, the Israeli Air Force hit multiple military facilities and targets across southern Lebanon, which resulted in the death of a senior Hezbollah commander. Hezbollah responded with a rocket barrage, hitting factories and civilian areas in Israel. Since October 2023, more than 400 people have been killed in Lebanon, with 25 deaths in Israel. Meanwhile, at least 90,000 people have been displaced in Lebanon and more than 60,000 have been forced from their homes in northern Israel. Suffice it to say, the situation is on fire, sometimes literally. Israeli troops have been seen using a trebuchet to toss fireballs across the border into Lebanon, probably to burn shrubbery so that hostiles can be identified more easily. Even so, both sides are primed for a fight, and war is itching closer, whether we like it or not. Netanyahu recently stated the end of the intense phase of the war in Gaza. This could have two different outcomes. Either Israel is moving resources to the Hezbollah front, or it is getting ready for a ceasefire in Gaza, which is one of the preconditions to de-escalate tensions with Hezbollah. So it could go either way, truce or more war. Ground News does a superb job providing all sides of the conflict. I turn to their app and website whenever I research current events like this. It's why I continue to partner with them. Nearly 150 articles have been published worldwide on Netanyahu's comments with several different narratives. Israeli headlines reference Netanyahu's claims of the war winding down. British government-associated BBC focuses on intense fighting in Lebanon, while Turkey government Anadolu Agency highlights the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Comparing coverage in this way is crucial to see how strategic interests and hidden motives can shape public perception and ultimately influence global power. I encourage you to go to ground.news/Caspian to learn more. Subscribe through my link for 40% off unlimited access. That's what I use for my analysis. By subscribing, you are directly supporting my channel. In the late 6th century BC, as Chinese strategist Sun Tzu rested near the mouth of the Yangtze River, he wrote one of his most renowned aphorisms: "He will win who knows when to fight and when not to fight." For 8 months, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu decided that the time was not right to fight in the north, at least not a full-fledged war. But that policy seems to be rapidly falling apart. Whenever a skirmish erupts, time is of the essence. The more time passes, the more the conflict escalates, and the more the chances grow for a full-out war. Netanyahu and his cabinet face the trial posed by Sun Tzu. Is now the time to fight? President Biden doesn't think so. From the outset of the Gaza war, America has thrown substantial diplomatic and military heft to prevent the fighting in Gaza from spreading to Lebanon and beyond. No less than 2 aircraft carrier strike groups were deployed to the eastern Mediterranean. Even so, these measures didn't have the desired effect, if they had any at all. Hezbollah has since switched tactics. It is now looking to impose pain on the Israeli population situated in northern Israel and thereby encourage the civilians to leave the area permanently. By making Israel's north unstable and unsafe, Hezbollah is steadily making the region uninhabitable. By all means, what's going on between Israel and Lebanon is a war of attrition. It's a test of who can hold out the longest, of who can endure the most pain. This map, compiled with data from the non-profit ACLED, illustrates the cross-border attacks from October 2023 to March 2024. The blue circles stand for Israeli attacks, while the orange circles represent Hezbollah attacks. The bigger the circle, the more attacks took place in the vicinity. Here, near Kiryat Shmona, Hezbollah conducted 62 attacks. In nearby Margaliot, there were 56 attacks. Further north, in Sheba Farms, there have been 43 attacks, while Shatula and Aramsha in the south have each seen 43 and 39 attacks by Hezbollah. Israel has retaliated strongly and more spread evenly. The Lebanese town of Aita al-Shab has seen 190 Israeli attacks, while in Hula there have been 143 attacks. Still more to the west, Ras al-Nakwara, Alma ash-Shab, and Tyre Harfa have seen 154, 134, and 139 attacks respectively. Needless to say, the whole region has been through the meat grinder. So much so that the Israeli government has ordered the evacuation of communities along the Lebanese border. Some 60,000 Israelis have left their homes, and this entire zone is off limits to civilians. Simultaneously, on the other end of the border, more than 90,000 Lebanese have packed up their stuff and moved north, away from the crossfire. Life has become unbearable. However, in recent months, Israeli civilians from the northern towns have been increasingly demanding that Netanyahu's government take practical steps to return them to their homes. But American diplomacy seems to be out of ideas. The gaps in the negotiations are deemed insurmountable, and so all that is left is war. As such, Israeli military officials now speak more loudly and more often of a ground invasion of Lebanon. Meanwhile, in his last video message, Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah said that in case of war, his army would fight without restraints, without rules, and without limits. The mood is on edge. If armed conflict were to erupt, it would play out like a firestorm, devouring everything in its path. Fighting Hezbollah would necessitate a long and complex conflict. It's the type of warfare Israel is frankly not set up to win. Admittedly, Israel punches well above its weight in all domains of statecraft. It has a robust military that enjoys untethered access to the American arsenal and its defense industries. Israel also has a vast arsenal of missiles and rockets. It domestically produces numerous cruise and ballistic missiles. These can hit targets as far as Iran, let alone neighboring Lebanon. Anti-radar missiles like Delilah have a range of up to 300 kilometers. LoRa ballistic missiles can fly as far as 280 kilometers, and artillery rockets such as Extra have a range of 150 kilometers. Air-to-ground missiles like Popeye Turbo have a range greater than 200 kilometers, while the Gabriel anti-ship missile can fly as far as 400 kilometers. These are the types of weapons that Israel can readily manufacture at home and in great quantity. Using these systems, Israel can make short work of Lebanon. However, the complete military superiority that the Israeli military enjoyed for 3 decades has worn away years ago. Hezbollah, which was once seen as a poorly resourced militant group that could carry out occasional bombings and small hit-and-run attacks, now holds capabilities associated with professional state militaries. Its fighting force numbers around 100,000 soldiers, most of whom are battle-hardened from Syria. Hezbollah troops are trained like an army and equipped like a state. It possesses a large and diverse stockpile of rockets and ballistic missiles, as well as anti-air, anti-tank, and anti-ship missiles. Some of these weapons pose a genuine strategic threat to Israel. For instance, the Fajr 5 has a range of 75 kilometers, the K-Bar has a range of up to 100 kilometers, and the Zelzal 2 missile has a range of 210 kilometers, which can hit targets as far as the Tel Aviv metropolitan area. This is the heart of Israel, the place where much of its population, economy, and industries are situated. These 3 missiles also happen to be of Iranian origin. Collectively, this arsenal of missiles and rockets places Israeli security under constant pressure. Back in 2018, Hezbollah was estimated to have roughly 130,000 rockets and missiles. However, in June 2024, an official from Iran's Quds force overseeing Hezbollah operations went on record saying that Hezbollah had more than 1 million rockets and missiles. If true, and that is a big if, but even if half that number was valid, that is a massive jump in capacity which was previously not established. For context, a stockpile of 1 million rockets and missiles is more extensive than what the average NATO member has in-house. Israel's Iron Dome, as sophisticated as it may be, would be overwhelmed if Hezbollah fired everything everywhere all at once. However, a full-scale war between Hezbollah and Israel would be devastating to both. That much is clear after 8 months of conventional conflict in Gaza. Hezbollah is aware that all of Lebanon would be destroyed in the case of full-out war, with tens of thousands of casualties. But Israel is also aware that what it faced in Gaza over these past months, without achieving all its objectives, would be nothing compared to a war with Hezbollah. What makes conflict with Hezbollah so complex is its entrenched nature. Like Hamas, Hezbollah forces are deeply embedded in Lebanon's civilian population. Tactical sites are often located in the heart of urban areas in a decentralized manner. Israel would have difficulty in finding and destroying military targets as it did in Gaza. But since Lebanon is much larger than Gaza, Hezbollah's urban entrenchment means it would retain the capacity to attack Israeli targets effectively over time. The only way to turn off this advantage would be to bomb Lebanese cities from the air indiscriminately and then move ground forces to occupy the strategic sites. That's a lot of damage we're talking about. It would be like the current Gaza war, but on a much larger scale. In Gaza, Israeli forces moved quickly and sliced through Hamas defenses above ground. Below ground, however, things have deviated from the plan. Israeli special engineering units can deal with individual tunnels, but they can't cover large networks effectively. As such, Israel has been unable to find strategic assets or senior Hamas leaders. In Lebanon, hostilities would be orders of magnitude greater. Hezbollah has far more advanced anti-tank weapons and attack drones. If fighting took place in open territory, Hezbollah troops would be able to target and destroy Israeli forces from kilometers away. That's not a capacity Hamas has ever had. What's more, just like Hamas, Hezbollah also has tunnel networks that run underground across Lebanon. These Hezbollah tunnels are believed to be even more extensive than the ones used by Hamas. Plus, consider that Lebanon is a mountainous land, whereas the Gaza Strip is a flat terrain. So fighting in Lebanon's mountains against an enemy armed to the teeth and with tunnels running underground is not the best of ideas. On top of that, unlike Gaza, which is geographically isolated from its sponsors in Tehran, Iran has established ground and air supply routes leading to Lebanon through Iraq and Syria that could be used to sustain Hezbollah's forces in the event of a full-scale war. Again, Israel is not prepared for a ground assault on Lebanon. Heck, even if the Israelis moved into southern Lebanon proper, say 10 or even 20 kilometers from the border, Hezbollah would still be able to rain rockets down across Israel. Considering the proximity between Israel and Lebanon and the massive stockpile that Hezbollah possesses, numerous Israeli cities would likely be destroyed in the case of full-scale war. Israel would inflict massive damage on Lebanon. The Israeli defense minister warned that Lebanon would return to the Stone Age in the event of a war. That may be true, but Hezbollah would do the same to Israel's north. With its massive firepower, Hezbollah would take down nearly all of Israel's essential infrastructure, including oil refineries, air bases, and the Dimona nuclear research facility. The whole back-and-forth carnage would end in yet another fragile ceasefire agreement, which wouldn't inspire much trust from the northern Israeli communities. Multinational businesses would move away from Israel. Capital flight could take hold of the Israeli economy since nobody wants to set up shop in a place that sees armed conflict. Israel's diplomatic, economic, and military position after the conflict would be worse than before. So, the price of war is far greater than its benefits. So far, Israel and Hezbollah have kept the escalations within the current framework and have used the UN interim force in Lebanon as a backdoor channel for dialogue. Hezbollah, despite its martyrdom rhetoric, is not suicidal. Instead, it prefers controlled escalation, keeping its actions just below the threshold of full-scale war. Its actions so far have been to counter Israeli escalation with reciprocal measures, with the aim being to establish a new deterrence. That escalation might increase or decrease in the coming months. We don't know what's on the minds of Lebanese or Israeli officials, but if the escalation goes beyond certain red lines, for instance, if there is a sudden spike in civilian casualties, then full-scale war may yet become unavoidable. The only way to step back is for Israel and Hamas to agree to a ceasefire and then negotiate for Hezbollah to respect that as well. The available firepower that both parties possess is too great to be applied. So it stands to reason that peace is maintained by the equilibrium of forces, and will continue only for so long as this equilibrium exists. I've been your host Shirvan from Caspian Report. If you approve of what we do, please leave a comment, hit the like button, and mayhaps share the video. In any case, thank you for your time, and Sawal.